What would you do right now if a wildfire, flood, blackout, or evacuation alert hit your phone while you're alone with your kids? Would you know where your documents are, who to call, or where to go? If you're a single parent, that question can feel terrifying and overwhelming. But today's episode is about turning fear into calm, clarity, and confidence. In this episode of Single Parent Success Stories, I'm joined by Jennifer Heller, the founder of Here Comes the Apocalypse, who created a simple, realistic ways for families, especially single parents households, to prepare for emergencies without panic, paranoia, or extreme prep or advice. Stick around because Jennifer shares practical, doable steps you can take today, like how to build a real grab-and-go plan, protect your kids from modern scams, and create safety through preparation and community. This isn't about living in fear. It's about reclaiming peace of mind and knowing that you've got this even when life gets unpredictable. Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. This holiday season, skip the candles and gift cards. Give the woman in your life something that truly matters. Or better yet, give it to yourself. The gift inside is for every woman who spent decades being everything to everyone else. It's time to remember who you are and rediscover your happiness. This isn't just a book, it's a permission to put yourself first again. Available now, because the best gift you can give is helping someone find themselves. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Jennifer Heller. She is on a mission to help as many families as possible to be prepared for extreme weather emergencies. Her company, Here Comes the Apocalypse, offers a practical, down-to-earth system for disaster preparedness for the modern family. She is down-to-earth disaster preparedness expert the world needs, because extreme weather is our new normal. So welcome, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So please share with us, how did this mission become so critical to you?
Yes. Well, I had my first child in 2016, and I've lived in California in the Bay Area my whole life. And then in 2017, so my kid was only about 7 months old, I had an aunt and uncle lose their home in a wildfire, and they lived in Santa Rosa, California. And so it was, a town. It wasn't like in the middle of nowhere. It was a town like the one that I lived in, right? And suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, this could happen to anybody. And I was like, okay, well, I need to prepare our family for disasters. And so, I went online and I went to like ready.gov and I went all over the place, right? To try to figure out what a disaster plan was. What a disaster plan. Like, make a disaster plan is like something people say, right?
Right.
And it took me, I couldn't figure out what a disaster plan was. It was, everybody talked about gear to buy or whatever, and food and water, right? But besides that, I'm like, there's got to be more to it. Like, that's not a plan. That's just some junk in your garage, right? And so I really set out to figure out what a disaster plan was. And so I went through about 3 years of just a deep dive in the prepper space. And I don't consider myself a prepper. I'm just a mom that wants to be really coordinated with my family. We work in different places. My kids are in different places. It's important to me that we think through what we're going to do if the worst happens before it happens, not at the time that is happening, because it's very hard to make decisions when you're triggered. So during that time, my in-laws actually also lost their home in a wildfire here in California. So I've had 2 households in my extended family lose their homes, and I've watched both of them go through everything. And I've really made just a ton of notes about what would have made a difference for them. And I distilled all of that into the Disaster Playbook, which is a step-by-step guide to preparing your families for disasters and emergencies. We don't talk about off-the-grid living. We're not teaching you how to forage for mushrooms or whatever, right? There's lots of online resources for that. We talk about practical, actionable steps that you can take with your family that are going to make a meaningful difference for you if this happens. And let's be honest, it's happening to more and more people every day. Millions of people in the US alone this summer have been affected by floods and wildfires and tropical storms and stuff like that, right? It's happening all over the place, and it's heartbreaking to see these communities be impacted so terribly.
Totally. Especially, you were able to experience it firsthand, even in your own family. And that kind of had a light bulb moment. I gotta do something for myself just so that, we're prepared. I know we'll always love to be in control. And oftentimes we cannot control the weather. We cannot predict what happens, but we can do all we can to get ready, to be prepared. Like, how before you give birth, you need to have your bag ready. So you go to the hospital,
Yes.
you have all the stuff that you need. And even before the baby comes, a month before, just in case. So this is the same kind of situation where you want to be prepared and having all the tools that you need so you don't find yourself scrambling in the last minute that you've forgotten something. So what was the most, I guess, interesting find you did when you were doing your research? What was the unexpected thing that kind of...
I think that, the thing that really affected me when I was doing all this research was like the crazy advice that people give. I read a bunch of books on preparedness, and I read a bunch of websites, and I found a real scarcity in just practical tips. I read a book this thick on emergency communications, but it was just all about ham radios and walkie-talkies, and a lot of us don't have the interest level or time to take that up, right? And I just wanted a plan that was like, using the tools we have, cell phones and maybe a couple landlines, how do we make an emergency communication plan? And it wasn't anywhere, nobody gave you that information. And so we figured it out, and we give you a whole template for that. One woman recommended that we bury a fridge in our backyards to keep our go bags inside. And I mean, she had some good reasoning around that. Like the fridge is like raccoon proof or like gopher proof or whatever, but like, who's gonna do that, right? I'm not gonna do that. And also, I live in an urban area, right? And a lot of people don't have room in their backyard for a fridge, right? And she said, after you bury it, like plant some flowers on top so that your neighbors don't know where it is. And I was just like, what? This is so crazy. And like, also, what part of it that seems to me crazy is like, you need to rotate the stuff in your go bags. You need to like rotate the water depending on the water supply that you choose or whatever, so there are things that you have to do. Like, in our go bags, we have some, medication, right? Some Tylenol and Benadryl and allergy meds. And so we have a spot in the disaster playbook where you note the expiration dates on the stuff that you put in your go bag so that when it's time, you want to rotate it out and use it, right? So you're not wasting that money, and put fresh ones in there and note that, right? And so like every year and a half or whatever, you want to rotate the meds in your go bag. And I'm like, you can't do that if it's buried in the backyard, right? Like, this is what I found is like, there was so much like extreme advice that wasn't practical for like daily living, right? In my research, I've talked to so many people, and so many people say, oh yeah, I did that when my kids were 5, right? And now her kids are 20, and it's like, okay, well, so the food in there is probably expired. The clothes you packed for your kids are probably not gonna fit. You have to keep rotating this stuff out. One tip I give to parents is when you put together your go bags, put in 3 sizes up and get them at the thrift store. Don't buy new clothes for your kids here. Go to the thrift store, get like my little one's 3. So I have size 3, size 4, and size 5 in the go bag so that they're not like nice clothes. She's not going to be like ecstatic. She's going to be like, where's my cute dress? And I'm going to be like, well, you have your brother's old clothes here. So it's a dire situation. I'm sorry, and hopefully we never have to use it, of course.
So what is your do you think if you didn't have kids, would you have ventured into the disaster preparation?
I really don't think so. Well, I think that so many people say to me, because I called the company, Here Comes the Apocalypse, right? And I thought that was funny. I've got kind of a dark sense of humor, right? And first of all, I want to say that I don't think of an apocalypse as like, the world ending. I think of it as any life-changing situation. And that's actually what the word means, is world altering. Source of the word means world altering. And so like your world, my personal world changed when I had kids, right? That was a major life-altering thing that happened. So a life-altering event can be losing your home. It could be a flood. It could be the loss of a loved one or even a pet, And so if you think about apocalypse less as like the world's ending and more like, my world's changing in a major and unexpected way, I think that makes it a little more important to prepare, right? Because it's really unlikely that the world is just going to end. And what everybody always says to me is, well, I'm just going to be dead. And I'm like, well, yeah, but in my mind, that's the best case scenario. Like a much worse case scenario is that you're still alive and you're hurt, or like your loved ones are hurt, or you have to make do or like put your life back together after losing everything, like my in-laws did when their house burned down. And that is a major world altering experience. And that's so much more likely, right? Than you just getting to die. I mean, obviously nobody wants to die, but at least you don't have to deal with the aftermath.
Totally. I think preparation beats expectation. So what can we do as parents to better prepare for disasters?
So one of the most boring steps that we have people do is to get their important papers in order, okay? And so, like, this is a step that nobody talks about in the prepper space, or very few people talk about. I don't see it talked about very often. And this is about our bureaucratic world, right? Like, you've got a driver's license, you've got, like medical records, you've got prescriptions, you've got the deed of your house, your car, pink slip. And so what we have you do is actually photocopy all of those. And we have a list on our website, herecomestheapocalypse.com. In the footer, there's an important papers list. And you click on that. And then we've got this list of all the things that we recommend that you photocopy. And you're going to make color copies if you can, but black and white is better than nothing. And make 2 copies, put 1 copy in preferably a fire and water safe envelope. We've got recommendations for those on the website too, or just a Ziploc bag, right? And then you put those in your go bag, and then the other copy you put in your stay bag or your emergency kit, right? And so that you have proof of insurance. One of the worst case scenarios that I think about a lot is that we live our lives in the cloud. So like all of our photos are in the cloud, all of our, you're like, oh, well, I don't need my insurance paperwork because I can just log into the website and get them, right? Well, what if you can't, right? What if you can't? Or for whatever reason, there's so many reasons why you wouldn't be able to log into that website. The thing is that all of this stuff that's in the cloud is not actually up in the sky. It is server farms, right? They're actually on physical computers here on Earth. And those physical computers are in places where there could be floods. There could be fires. There could be power outages. There are all these things that could affect all the stuff we have in the cloud. So, another thing as parents that we might want to do would be to, store some of our favorite photos on like a memory stick. And put that in the go bag, the birth photos, the first day of school photos, just grab them, put them on a memory stick, and put them in your go bag. So you've got them just in case, Hopefully they're going to stay on the cloud and you're never going to lose them. But what if you do?
Totally. You're so right. Well, I wanted to save everything on my, and then
Nice!
this guy broke.
Oh, no! Oh, that's the worst. Okay. I'm so sorry.
And I wanted to protect from the cloud. So this was my secondary insurance.
Right.
So because it's hard drive, it's supposed to work.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
I mean, it wasn't some of my life is there, but it's okay. It's not too bad. I'm
Not all
still
of it.
figuring out whether I want to go retrieve anything from there or not. But
right, because it's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta you have the online copy in the cloud, but then you also want to have the secondary one,
and maybe also
hopefully one or the other can have.
Right. As I mentioned, the memory stick, maybe just make 2 while you're doing it. Because the truth is that you don't know how things are going to work.
Complicated.
Yeah. I mean, and hopefully more likely to work. I know that hard drives fail, but also, memory sticks fail. I mean, I wanted to include in my kit that I sell a memory stick, and I went online to try to find buy them in bulk, get a bunch of them. And they all had just so many mixed reviews. 5 people were like, "Oh, I bought it and then it didn't work." And then, 5 people were like, "Oh, it works great." And I was just like, well, I don't want to give people anything that has a 50% chance of not working. And so I just abandoned that idea because
the speed of technology, what you prepare now, 6 months from now might not be compatible.
Yes. I mean, and I actually have an ancient little tiny computer that I bought probably 15 years ago. But I think it's dependable, and it's not going to connect to the internet, but it will read my docs on my memory stick. It will look at my photos, and that's in my go bag too with its charging cord. So that's another thing that we need. If you have the extra funds, buy extra charging cords and put them in your go bag. Now, if you don't, you want to make a list, okay? So one of the pieces that I include is the grab and go checklist, okay? And so this is your grab and go checklist that you fill out ahead of time. And it's got what you grab if you have to evacuate and get out quick, okay? And so first, on the first page, we have who does what. So if you want to turn off the water or, I don't know, if you have animals that are outside or something, maybe you have other things that you need to do. So you make a list and you actually assign the responsibilities. Hopefully you have kids that can help, that are old enough to help. And then here we have if you have 5 minutes or 30 seconds to get out, if you have 30 seconds, what are you grabbing? You're grabbing your go bags, you're grabbing your cell phone and your chargers, your purse or your wallet, and maybe a favorite stuffed animal, right? You don't want very much here, right? Because you only have 30 seconds and you want to note the location where they usually are and who's going to grab what. As you can, divide and conquer, give other people responsibilities. And then if you've got more time, 5 minutes, then you can grab more stuff, right? Games, toys, and stuff like that. Or family heirlooms. And then on the back, we have, if you have an hour, what else do you want to grab? I should have said under 30 seconds, your pets, cats or your dogs obviously should be in there. When my aunt and uncle lost their house, they woke up, saw flames out the bedroom window and escaped in their pajamas with their dogs. So they got out and they got their dogs out, but they lost everything.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's really hard. That's just more and more people's story, But back to the important papers, I do have a story about that, which is that my mother-in-law, after she lost her home, we actually had a vacation planned right afterwards. We were meeting anyway at the beach for a week. And so they had lost their home literally 3 days before. And she was trying to get her meds refilled and she was calling, but she didn't have the prescription. And I was in the room with her and she's on the phone for hours and she's trying to convince them to fill this prescription. And they keep saying, "Well, call your doctor." And she's like, "I can't call my doctor. The hospital, it burned down." They're like, "What? Well, then call, they don't get it." And then she's like, "Can I talk to your superior?" Or whatever. And then that person is doing the same thing. And she's just I just hear her over and over and over again say, "I can't do that. It burned down. I can't do that. It burned down, right? And she needs these medications, right? And this is why it's so important that we have photocopies of our medications that we bring with us, and that is also something that you have to maintain, right? You have to update it when you get a new prescription. You have to, get in the habit. You were talking about habits, right? And how this podcast is all about habits. So you get in the habit of getting a new prescription and then photocopying it and adding it to the important papers, and then new insurance information. Photocopy it, add it to the new important papers. New school, you want to update all your info about like the phone numbers, the addresses, all of that. So, what I find is that preparedness is like a lot about, you do some upfront work, absolutely, but then you have to keep it going. You got to maintain it, and it is a project. And I'm sorry that we have to do this. I wish we didn't, it would be better for all of us if we didn't have to, but
Yeah,
we
but
do.
like anything in life, if you wanna have something, gotta maintain it. Even when you have a home, you gotta do repairs, you gotta do the checkups, and when you're a human, you do your annual checkup.
Absolutely.
Same with that, to make sure that nothing is expired or falls behind. Is building community important for disaster response?
Yes, I absolutely think so. And that was one thing I didn't like about, that woman's recommendation that we bury the fridge and hide it from our neighbors. I think that we're stronger together, and, we go out and we all buy all this stuff, right? For our preparedness. But like, what if you buy half and your neighbors buy half and you guys, do it together? Like, you all save money, and then you've got more people around to help take care of everything, especially as a single parent. You, I think, will really benefit from partnering up with a couple of families nearby and really talking about it together and thinking through what you're doing. One of the recommendations that we make is that you decide on designated meeting places. So if you can't meet at home, where you're going to meet. And this is if your kids are like old enough to, get someplace, right? And so you want to have one designated meeting place near your house, one designated meeting place in your town, but farther away from your house, so that, if your area is, you can't get there, then you can go to another area. And then one designated meeting place farther outside of town, like people call that like the bug out location or whatever. We're not talking about a bunker. We're talking about a friend's house, 20 miles away or whatever, or 100. Your choice. You do you. So if you have this designated meeting place and you share those meeting places with other families, you've also got other adults that know your kids, that are going to be looking out for them, and your kids will be really happy to see them, right? It'll be comforting to have more familiarity there if you can't be there right away for whatever reason.
Totally, you're so right. How does your expertise in marketing and design make you a good guide for people who haven't been able to get prepared?
Well, I think that one of my superpowers is taking complicated information and breaking it into easy to digest pieces. And I think that's what we've done here, is just break down, like, here's a step, you do the step, right? Like, because I think a lot of people go down a prepper rabbit hole of like information and get overwhelmed and never do anything, right? And that's why I wanted to create this guide. I also think that people are more likely to do something if they're entertained. And so we, crammed in as many corny jokes and silly illustrations in this guide as possible, right? And there are some F-bombs, I'll be honest. The next edition won't have any F-bombs. I'll take them out, but they're in there, so I apologize if you're offended by that. Just skip over them, But I do think that breaking it out and incorporating color and incorporating fun illustrations and pictures and jokes really does help you get through it, right? This isn't something that people are like, oh, yay, I get to wake up maybe some people are. I don't know. If that's you, like, wow, that's awesome, right? But that's not me. This weekend I got to update my important paper stocks. And I'm like, man, that's how I feel, right? But we've got like this fun folder that you like put them in, right? And so, you've got a checklist. You just go through, okay. And then you get to check it off, right? Like you get to check it off. And for me, just having that physical, it feels like a celebration and it feels like completion to this kind of nebulous task, right? It's like, oh, when have I prepared? When am I prepared enough? It gives you some rails to keep you contained and give you guidance.
Totally. Thank you. I love it. And because you've been so close to it, and we've seen this year alone in California, so much disaster has happened. So it's very like front and focused. Before maybe it was a distant dream. Now it's like looks like becoming a reality. And living with that and having prepared, I think, gives you back the tools so that you can come out better, that you don't break down when something so disastrous happens. So is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Well, I do want to say that, people get scared off by like the amount it's going to cost to prepare. Like, oh, I have to buy all this gear and stuff. And like a lot of the projects that we've talked about today are like super free. Like making your designated meeting list, your meeting places, like deciding on those doesn't cost you anything, right? But you do have to make sure that you get everybody on the same, everybody needs to know the same designated meeting. Like you all have to remember it, which is why I do have a pocket emergency plan that we sell at Here Comes the Apocalypse that is only $4.95 for 2. And that gives you spots to write in your designated meeting places. And you can put that in a Ziploc bag in your kid's backpack. And then they have it physically written down because, our brains are very fallible. You forget things all the time, right? That happens. The other thing that might have come up for you on other podcasts, but there's something happening with like AI and kids, and AI is people are using AI to imitate your children's voice and asking you, pretending that they're holding your kid hostage and asking you for money. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And so this is a tip, which is to create a code word with your kids that nobody, you never write it down, right? It's only in your head, right? And so if you get one of these calls so that you could tell whether it's AI or not, you would ask, what's our code word? And the AI wouldn't know, right? So that's a super important tip. That is, these issues of our modern times, which is so alarming. But, I think that's a very easy step that we can take that doesn't cost any money, that could bring you some peace of mind. This is all about peace of mind, right? I think of preparedness as self-care, right? Like it's thinking about one of the things that I think about a lot is like me and my family on the floor of a high school gym, because that's like a very common location where they would make a community like shelter area. And what do you want in your go bag that's going to help with that? Like a lot of people have in their go bags like really intense gear, and sure, have an emergency radio and flashlights and we tell you to put gear like that in your go bag. But I think that equally important is a change of clothes, some soap, some lotion, earplugs, and some toys and games, I have like crayons and a coloring book, right? I took one of the infant toys that's like a little, just something to play with, because you're going to have this anxious energy, not really knowing what's going on, and, having something to futz with. And other free things that you can put in your go bag that could make a big difference is like ketchup packets. Put those in a Ziploc bag, but so they don't spill everywhere. Ketchup packets, salt and pepper, little tiny bit, things that you get from restaurants, soy sauce, hot sauce, if that's your jam, right? Putting that stuff in there, because a lot of the food that you're going to be getting, or the emergency food that you put in your go bag, is going to be not very tasty. And so having something like that could really help to make a difference in that moment.
Thank you so much. If people would like to connect and learn more about you, where would they go?
So our website is herecomesapocalypse.com. The disaster playbook is our step-by-step guide, and we sell that in 2 sets. With the disaster playbook comes with the I Will Thrive manual, which is where you fill in all your personal information. And then the full set is the disaster bundle, which comes with the important papers pack, the pocket emergency plans, the grab and go checklist, all of that. So that's at herecomesapocalypse.com. We also have a ton of free resources that don't cost any money. And we've got a 5-day challenge, the Kickstart Your Prep 5-day challenge, which is completely free and gives you 5 steps to take in 5 days to jumpstart your preparedness journey.
Cool. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you. I love the work that you are doing that kind of personally impacted you. And so you have the knowledge because you've experienced through your family and then doing all the research.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.